This is Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Happy Friday, folks. The Sweet 16 rolls on later tonight. We'll have all the previews for it and a lot more as the baseball season, of course, is underway. Jonathan Von Tobel, Ben Stevens here with you. Ben, of course, is filling in for Stormy Buonantony. We did not, I don't think we uploaded these. I don't know if Stormy shared them in secret, I guess, or in trust of us. But we got some pictures from the Philippines yesterday. And let me tell you, I was not wrong about my assumption about Stormy Buonantony. So, Ben, the running joke here is that I've never seen Stormy wear shorts. She's always wearing pants. And that I think that it would probably be something that you would have to shield your eyes from, considering the glaring whiteness that would then appear should you then see her in shorts. And let's just say that was exactly the truth when we got pictures from the Philippines. Absolutely ridiculous. But glad she's having a good time. Maybe we'll get some real good food pictures when she goes to Japan, and we can start sharing them in the Where the World is Stormy Buonantony. But how was the evening for you, sir?
It was awesome. How could you not enjoy Sweet 16 Thursday, and especially those opening two games? Purdue with the tip-in from Trey Kaufman-Renn with 0.7 seconds remaining for the victory, surviving and advancing to the nth degree against Texas. And an awesome game between Iowa and Nebraska that we expected to be awesome because of the historical context and accomplishments for both of those programs that had rarely been to that stage, or in the case of the Huskers, had never been to that stage. A brutal ending of the season for Fred Hoiberg and his team, but a magical dream year in Lincoln. And the dream continues in Iowa City under first-year head coach in Ben McCollum. The later games maybe not necessarily as competitive as we expected, JVT, but we did think Arizona was due for a really good matchup against Arkansas. They took advantage of everything the Razorbacks wanted to do, making some NCAA tournament history in doing so. And I would just say that I'm happy I'm not in Southeast Asia during the NCAA tournament. Certainly not for Sweet 16 weekend, as I enjoyed thoroughly what I was watching last night. I hope Stormy and her shorts were able to find a bar, post up, and I'm not exactly sure the time difference, but take in a little college basketball action.
Let's see. It's 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday over there, so it's 16 hours. So last night, they would have put you at about midday yesterday. Am I about right?
That's not bad.
On a Friday, something like that. So I don't know. Maybe you got to watch them. I did get a text from her husband about the Charlotte Hornets. So they do have the capabilities of watching sports over there. So you got to get that. We'll get to the Charlotte Hornets because on Hardwood Handicappers, the NBA podcast we have here this morning that was released from Zach Cohen, I was on today, and I went on a little bit of a soliloquy about the Charlotte Hornets, who we need to very, very much take very seriously. You know, it's funny you mentioned the two beatdowns last night. That's where I wanted to begin, specifically with our boys, the Arizona Wildcats. And not to, slap yourself on the back a little bit here. I wanted to spin this forward. Arizona, 109-88. They get the win. They get the cover. They have covered 2 games that they have played so far. And, of course, they pushed, depending on what number you got, against Utah State. But I bring this team up because everything I heard, because I think you, if I remember correctly, have Arizona as your national champion. I do as well. And everything you heard heading into this tournament was, well, Tommy Lloyd, don't trust him. They can't do it. He's going to fail. And I always like to say, they're never going to do it until they do it, right? This seems different to me. Arizona, through the first 3 rounds, has really been steady. Even against Utah State, again, a game in which they didn't cover outright, they kind of held them at arm's length. I don't think that you were ever really scared that Utah State was going to get in there and make it a game. They beat the absolute tar out of the darling Arkansas Razorbacks. They faced down one of the most intimidating free throw distraction celebrations in LIU in the first round. And I think this team, dude, they've got the talent. They've got the continuity. I keep saying it. There's guys that have FIBA ties to Lloyd back to the offseason. This group, I think, is special, man. And I think that if you're still rolling with the thought process that Tommy Lloyd and the Arizona Wildcats can't get it done, I think it might be time to rethink that. Having said that, I thought that about Houston, and they lost yesterday. But for Arizona specifically, what have you seen through the first 3 rounds? And we'll spin this forward to their Elite Eight matchup.
Yeah, JVT, it's one of the really interesting things about a tournament. It is a tournament where you have to be at your best to win a national championship on only 6 nights after playing 30-plus games through the regular season and through conference tournament week as well. So it can be a little bit helter-skelter. You can have games that are an anomaly, as Houston put on display with a woeful offensive performance against Illinois. But specifically here for Arizona, one of the reasons I love this Cats team, one of the reasons I picked them to win a national championship is what we saw on full display last night against the Razorbacks. How they are constructed. Elite defensively. Sure, the Hogs scored 88 points points. But we knew that Arkansas, as the fifth most efficient offense in that style of game that was going to feature a lot of points, screaming over a total in the mid-160s, was going to get theirs. It was Arizona's construction offensively that I think really stands out, and you cannot be upset or spoiler-proof, especially at this stage of the big dance. But for the reasons that we highlighted that Arizona had some advantages against Arkansas, 64% in their two-point field goal percentages. That's where they start everything. 32 of 50 last night against a Razorbacks defense that had some interior issues. They were 5 of 8 from three. They only took 8 threes as compared to 52-point field goals and still scored 109 points. That is a rarity in the current climate of college basketball. And they got to the foul line a ton. They made 30 free throws. They were the first team in an NCAA tournament game ever in the history of the big dance to shoot 60% from the floor, 60% from three, and make 30 free throws. It is that version of Arizona, specifically offensively, in a high-paced game against a really good offense on the other side, led by one of the best players in the country, and Darius Acuff Jr., that I think, JVT, you are seeing why so many are picking Arizona to cut down the nets in just over a week and a half in Indianapolis.
And now they get Purdue, which is fitting that we're going to talk about this and that we have you here. We talked a lot about the Boilermakers yesterday. Texas stays inside of the number. From a contest standpoint, I'm kind of kicking myself. I overthought it. I was like, oh, there's so many people at Texas. It doesn't matter. Should have used them. Could have got an extra point. Well, we move on. But Texas really covers with ease, never really threatening. I think at one point did Purdue lead by 6, if I remember, maybe. If other than that, really, there was no real threat for them to not stay inside of that number. But they get it done. You mentioned Trey Kaufman-Renn, the putback, maybe an offensive foul there, but that's fine. You don't get it called. Either way, Purdue moves on. They're 6.5-point dogs to Arizona. Obviously, a little bit of a different role for the Boilermakers as well. So with everything we've said about the Wildcats, what do we make of where we're looking here over the weekend between these two?
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult matchup for Purdue for all the reasons. I thought the Boilermakers had a really good matchup in the Sweet 16 against Texas. Because of what Arizona does efficiently on the defensive side, I think that's going to confound some things for the Boilermakers. And because of the pace that Arizona can play at, again, I think they also speed up Purdue. Not my favorite matchup for the Boilers. I have a national championship ticket on Purdue, bet 11 months ago in the middle of April of 2025 at a 13-1 price that I am hoping can still see the Final Four, but also, of course, bet Arizona at plus 425 before the big dance started. But, JVT, to your point about Purdue last night, Trey Kaufman-Renn was the difference. 20 points, 8 boards, 4 of those offensive, and, of course, including the tip back, the first Purdue player in an NCAA tournament game to hit a shot in the final second of regulation. That was TKR last night, and that was a huge story. With the foul trouble for Texas, Modest Vodakaitis in a ton of foul trouble. Former Purdue player Cam Heide in a ton of foul trouble, fouling out early. Frankly, a ref show. I saw so many official reviews last night. That game started half an hour prior to Nebraska and Iowa and ended after the thriller between the Hawkeyes and the Huskers. It was a Purdue team that I thought could take advantage of Texas, and the Longhorns stayed within that number all night long. Jordan Pope was great from three despite having a broken foot. Tremont Mark had 29 points, bearing 5 triples. It was a Purdue team that entered shooting 58% from three in their opening 2 games in the NCAA tournament. That was 4 of 20 last night, and Fletcher Loyer was the only guy who converted on a shot from beyond the arc. But in the end, it's Braden Smith putting up a shot and trusting in his team and Trey Kaufman-Renn that maybe there could be a follow, and TKR delivers. Purdue gets over that team total, by the way, of 77 and a hook. So we both hit our bets in the Longhorns and Boilermakers game in the start of the Sweet 16. In terms of the Elite 8 in the West Regional Final tomorrow in San Jose, this is what I expected it to be, 1 versus 2, but for all the reasons that we highlighted Arizona as our national championship pick, it's all the reasons I think the Wildcats probably win this game comfortably tomorrow against the Boilermakers.
Justin, I don't know who runs the VSiN social media account, but if we could talk to them, because there's this ridiculous video from March 25th of me talking about betting on Houston to win the NCAA tournament. If we could get that deleted, that would be absolutely fantastic before anybody really sees it, because we got to bring up the Cougars. And it's funny, I think in the video itself, I even mentioned, like, hey, look, the Houston Cougars, are the way they play offensively, it is flawed. They don't get to, we talked about this, right? They don't get to the free throw line. They take a bunch of mid-range jumpers. And if you're going to go out and have a bad shooting night, guess what? It's probably going to bite you. And sure enough, yesterday, what does Houston do? They go 9 of 32 from beyond the arc. They get just 2 free throw attempts in the game. They shoot 34% from the floor, Ben, and they get waxed and eliminated by Illinois 65-55. I mean, I don't want, because Illinois deserves a ton of credit. They played extremely well. They shot the ball well. They were 9 of 23 from beyond the arc. But I thought when I watched that game yesterday, I looked at a Houston team and I was like, wow, this is all of this team's weaknesses appearing in a single game, and you just got eliminated because of it.
No doubt about it. We knew that Illinois was one of the best teams at not fouling, meaning they're not going to give you freebies. But Houston did not necessarily construct their offense relying on the foul line. They only got 2 free throw attempts, but to JVT's point, they were 9 of 32 from 3. We highlighted yesterday why Illinois would have to be overwhelming offensively as the second best offense in the sport, basically, in the last 25 to 30 years. It's because the Fighting Illini have not been all that stellar defensively. They have so far in the NCAA tournament. They held VCU to only 55 points, and they hold Houston to 55 points last night. Both the Rams and the Cougs averaging less than a point per possession. That is stellar defense, very efficient on that side. So credit to the Fighting Illini for being great when it mattered defensively. But to your point, JVT, if Houston is ever going to go cold, they're not exactly built to overcome the offensive issues, and they are certainly not built to play in a game where they are playing from a deficit and the other side is kind of commanding the pace of things.
Illinois opens up as a 7.5-point favorite or so, or is a 7.5-point favorite or so, I should say, against Iowa here as we move forward to the Elite Eight. Some spots open at 7, total 139. We'll get to that matchup out in Houston coming up in a little bit. Looked like playing in Houston didn't really matter for the Cougars, I guess, yesterday. When we come back, though, we'll have our special guest, as he usually is with us at the desk. Mike Palm's going to join us, VP of Ops here at Circa, the D, and Golden Gate. Get his thoughts not only what we saw last night, what we'll see tonight, and the baseball season. He and I were chopping up about a couple of pitchers we don't really like, and some we do. One of them showed out yesterday. We'll tell you who it is when we come back here on Money Moves. Hey, let me get your attention real quick, podcast listeners. It's March, which means the madness is officially upon us, and the folks at VSiN have really gone crazy with this one. I'm being told that for just $29.99, you can get unlimited access to VSiN Pro through May 1st. I'm talking picks through the tournament, public betting data for every single game, plus sharp tools, projections, articles, and more. Just click the link in the description to get started. It's March, baby. All right, now back to the show.
Watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We continue on here on Money Moves. Excuse me. Wow, getting excited. Second sponsored by Upside. Download the free Upside app. Earn real cash back every time you fill up. Use promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first tank. Check out Upside. All right. I am excited because here at the desk in his usual spot on a Friday with us, Mike Palm, VP of Operations here at the D, and Golden Gate. I am alone at the desk. Ben Stevens is alongside digitally out there in California. But if you'll notice, yet again, no Stormy Buonantony today, Mike.
Well, you know, she has many jobs and many passions. And
so
when you catch her on a Friday, it's always a bonus. But I expect her not to be here.
I was going to say, what's the percentage rate do we think of this show in which Mike has been here at the desk and I am here, but Stormy is not? I don't think there's been a Friday you've been in where I am not.
You were somewhere, and you took the time to do the show.
I was in San Francisco for Radio Row.
Yeah, and you still did the show for radio. Occasionally, she'll do one segment when she's not here. Occasionally.
All right, before we let Ben in on this really quickly, yesterday, opening day, we had Stomper the mascot out here for the for the Athletics. We had apple pie, free drinks for the ladies, all sorts of festivities. How did yesterday go?
I thought it went well. I was surprised. I thought not having Maddox, it might be a slightly smaller crowd, but I think we had a lot of local folks come out that are excited for the A's to be here. Remember, they're playing 5 series in Summerlin this year. Mm-hmm. They're playing all their AL West opponents and the Brewers in 5 different series in Summerlin, so that's good. We're still going to start to get a taste of it. And I thought that the A's did a nice job with the whole presentation yesterday, and then it just rolled right into the Sweet 16 games, which I thought were incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, even the route, it still was a fun basketball game, with Arizona going up and down against Arkansas, and Acuff is great. The thing that surprised me was Houston only putting up 55 and 22 in the first half against an Illinois team that's not known for its lockdown half-court defense. Yep. But the big headline of yesterday has to be, is anybody going to be able to beat the Angels? I mean, this team looks like they're headed for the World Series. No one can score on it.
I will say, so to bring something back, I know I said Ben go, but I will just say really quickly, Ben, before you ask your question, they are on pace for 162-0, okay? And Soriano's got some good stuff, man. Like, he was touching 98. He hit 100 a couple of times yesterday. The knuckle curve's pretty deadly. And he pitched really well on the road at times last year. So let's see how he does back in Anaheim. But, I'm going to be positive. I'm not going to go over the top here.
I liked it for my under Astros bets. I'm not lying.
Astros blanked yesterday. Mike Trout looking like an American League MVP frontrunner starting in center field. JVT, a lot to like. Do we want to ask Mike about cheddar cheese on apple pie, or do we want to just move forward, talk some more Sweet 16 in college basketball?
Oh, yeah, I brought that up yesterday. You guys were serving the apple pies, and I brought up I guess it's a tradition, the melted cheddar cheese on apple pie. Have you ever had this?
No, never. No. I was happy that they had ice cream.
See?
That was all. Cheddar cheese.
Yeah, okay. See, this is what I'm saying. I have read about this a lot. It is a tradition that dates back for a long time, but I have yet to
Whose tradition is this?
Right. It's like is it a Midwest thing? I think we looked it up, but I have yet to find anybody who's ever even tried it. Yeah.
I never heard of it.
All right, never mind.
Okay, there we go. Ofer, goose egg, all across the board. Mike, it's been really interesting, of course, in the NCAA tournament the last few years, as it's been defined more by chalk and a little bit less madness. We saw that in the opening round, but on the opening day of the Sweet 16, 3 of the underdogs cover. 2 of those underdogs win outright in both Iowa and Illinois. What has it been like from the sportsbook's perspective? Because normally, if everybody is betting on favorites, it's a tough day for those in the risk room. But this is a tournament where we celebrate Cinderella and we love to bet on the underdog. What's the handle been looking like in terms of going after those favorites or trying to back some dogs and take some points?
Well, first of all, the handle the first weekend was down significantly, just in Nevada, not in the other states. But we saw not as many people coming out. And there's a variety of factors, I think. Not the least of which is the price of oil. Correct. And I mean, I said $5 for gas, and I got yelled at because there's places in Southern California, it's $9 a gallon. I mean, I couldn't imagine. And even short flights round trip are very expensive right now. So
I'm going to Final Four next week. Yeah. $775 to get out there?
Ludicrous. Yeah. It's not like you're booking it the day before. Right. So, Ben, what I was surprised was we did well last Thursday and Friday, and it's shocking because on a day when 16 favorites won on the money line on Friday. But then you think of it, people like to bet underdogs in March Madness. That's probably the one time they like to. We made a small winner on Saturday, mostly because Nebraska beat Vanderbilt, and we took a large bet on Vanderbilt. We made a small winner on Sunday, and we made a winner last night. It was okay. There wasn't really a big swing game. I think some had laid the points with Purdue there, so the Texas covering but not winning was good for us. Iowa, Illinois, we had more Iowa people than anybody here. We had 2 pods and 3 booths down in the book. We're all Iowa people. I mean, think about it. Iowa hadn't made the Sweet 16 this century. Mm-hmm. It had been a pretty dark period between Licklider and say what you want about Fran. He had a National Player of the Year. He could never get out of the first weekend. Remember, they had the 2. They got run by Oregon, who was a 7 that year. So all of a sudden, they made a sweep. Now they're in the Elite 8 for the first time since '87. I remember being up late at night. They had Tark's team down 16 in the Kingdome in that game in '87, and UNLV came back and went to the Final Four in New Orleans. So, it's an exciting time for the folks in Iowa. I supposed this question to Hoops Peterson just a few minutes ago. Would North Carolina, because I don't think Tommy Lloyd's leaving Arizona. I just don't. And I don't think May's leaving Michigan. Would they reach out to Ben McCollum when Iowa's run is over? Would Carolina go there? I mean, I don't know. Billy Donovan supposedly is interested. I just find it hard to believe an NBA coach is going back to college.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. Every year it seems when a big job opens, Billy Donovan's name comes up, and he's a good coach, man. I mean, we see it now. The Bulls aren't really winning games, but they're covering, and they're absolutely a legitimate team. Mike Palm with us again. Really quick, Palm Sunday is coming up. Palm Saturdays. What's with the shirt? Let people know.
Oh, yeah, that's on the Score in Chicago, 104.3 now. FM as well, AM and FM. And so I have my own show from 8 to 9 Central. I tape it, not tape, but film it. At Bar Canada at 6 a.m. Pacific time. So it's been terrific, and I'm scrambling a little bit for a guest, so we're going through. I'm going to reach out to Charch in a few minutes. I'd love to interview Nico Medved, who's, by the way, his team is coming for the crown. So maybe I got a shot with him. We're talking to Seth Greenberg, Jim Boeheim. Thad Matta was out of the country, so he wasn't able to do it. That was my first choice, but it's been good. I had Doug Gottlieb on last week. He was terrific. He's very open and honest and talking about NIL and his best player. And, he says the guy can finish out his career as one of the best Green Bay players ever, but he's going to make 4X to finish his senior year somewhere else. I can give him some money, but it's 3X for sure and maybe 4X, he said. And so we're going to kind of change our recruiting philosophy at this point to just recruit Wisconsin kids who would be more loyal to the soil that might be able to overcome that money. But it's a whole different ballgame right now.
All right. We do want to ask today, the big game is going to be St. John's and Duke. 6.5 in some spots. You guys are at 7, total 140.5. I can't find anybody that likes Duke.
There's no one in the world who's laid 7 with Duke that I know of, and yet the number's 7.
I used him in the contest.
The number, it went to 6.5 briefly yesterday and back to 7. The whole world loves St. John's. I don't know, which tells me Duke's probably in a pretty good spot tonight because that's just usually what happens when everybody's on one side. Hell of a 4 coaches that we got in Washington, D.C. for that regional, though. I'm looking forward to all 4 of those games. Hoops did tell me a few minutes ago he likes whoever wins that game, whether it be St. John's or Duke, to beat the winner of UConn, Michigan State.
Okay. Ben?
I knew Greg would be down at the sports book early on Sweet 16 Friday, getting ready for all the action. Mike, when we look at some of the other games tonight, in terms of using those VSiN betting splits, a lot of the public handle for the matchup between Michigan and Alabama on Dusty May's Wolverines, and yet we have seen this line move from double digits now down to 9, 8.5 in some spots. And on Circa, a lot of the money in terms of that handle likes the Crimson Tide to keep this game a little bit closer than expected. What's that looking like tonight between the Tide and the Wolverines?
Yeah, we need Michigan to cover the number here, although you never know because we're Michigan-based because of Derek and because all the kids here went to Michigan State. We get a lot of money on the Michigan teams. The thing about betting Alabama games, they're a high-variance team. The way they play with all the possessions, and it's scary for me to bet on them. I really believed that Texas Tech was going to give them a good game. That might have been the most one-sided game of the whole tournament.
Yep.
It was over before it began. Here's what I don't like about Michigan. They're uber talented. I love the size and athletic ability of their front court. I think they're too loosey-goosey. I don't think they stay within Dusty May's what he wants to do in a half-court game. And I just think they get sloppy at times. They never finish the first half well, right? They give away points here and there. I think it's just going to come up and bite them at some point. Is it going to be tonight? I don't know. But somewhere along the line, I think it's going to bite them. I actually have Iowa State coming out of this bracket.
Okay. Last 60 seconds. We don't have enough time. I teased it, but I teased the picture you and I were both talking about yesterday. Did you see the ridiculous final in the Rays-Cardinals game where Rasmussen...
Would you stop? I had 2 bets. I've got one in already, right?
Yeah.
I have, and all I need now is to sweep the board, is to have the Rays. They're up 7-1 in the 6th inning.
Yes.
Who's the kid they brought in? He gave up 5 hits and 5 batters. They gave up 8 in the bottom of the 6th to the Cardinals. The Cardinals, who I believe at 18-1, you might take a shot at the worst record in baseball. I know you have to overcome the Nationals, who, by the way, scored 10 on the Cubs yesterday.
Ian Seymour.
I can't believe it.
Get ready to learn AAA, buddy.
It ruined my day.
Because that was absolutely ridiculous. Mike, we appreciate it. Our talk here with Mike, sponsored by Upside. Turn your gas purchase into real cash back with the free Upside app. Download Upside now. Use promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill-up. When you come back next Friday.
Stormy won't be here either.
Neither will I, but I'll be remote.
But we're sponsoring you guys. You guys, we love it. We love you guys being in Indianapolis. Ben Stevens, a young Ted Danson, my friend, texted me with that hair.
Thanks, man.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, welcome back. We have a lot to get to here. Mike Palm has set the bar very, very high. Great guest spot with him. If you missed out on any part of it, you can go and check it out at VSiN.com or wherever you get your podcast. Download, like, rate, review, and subscribe. Money Moves. Ted Danson, I only know from the recent hit comedy The Good Place, right? That's who it was? Is that who you're supposed to look like? So I'll have to look like a
Really? That's what you know Ted Danson from? That's the first thing a great show, The Good Place. I've caught a couple of episodes, but not Cheers? You don't lead with Cheers?
I have no idea what that even means. Is that like?
Fair enough.
Is that the military one? I don't know. All right, let's welcome in Will Hill, who joins us now here via the Progressive Guest Line. Get his best bets for the day and a little bit more. We got to get some baseball as well. But Will, let's start. So it has been a cavalcade. I have not met a single person, save for myself, in the contest forum. I'll have to be fair, that has given the opinion that the Duke Blue Devils can cover this number. Save us. Tell us that you think the Blue Devils can cover today.
I think the first person I heard give out Duke was Dr. Bob, I believe, with Gil Alexander this morning. I'm not sure if it was a lean or an official play. So we do have somebody on board. And look, I'm with everybody else. It makes me nervous, but you got to just kind of say what you think about the games. I think it'll be a close game. I think St. John's maybe can turn them over with and I don't buy this idea that Foster's going to play or be 100%. That seems like from all the doctors you listen to or read, that seems like it's a stretch or some gamesmanship here. I think from a matchup standpoint, Dylan Mitchell, first team All Big East, 6'8", rugged, strong. He can maybe do a decent, reasonable job here on Boozer one-on-one, and that lets you play everybody else straight up here. So I think they can hang around here. I'll take Pitino. I'll take all the points. Granted, I admit, you said it, like everybody is on St. John's here, and it's interesting. This time last week, everybody was against St. John's taking the points with Northern Iowa, and all the same people, and I'm raising my hand too, have turned around here and said, you know what, I'm going to do. I'm on Team St. John's after fading them last week with Northern Iowa. So it's interesting how that goes, but I guess we'll see how it plays out here in a few hours. But I am on the Johnnies here plus the points.
I was on Northern Iowa as well, Will, and after a 13-zip start, not exactly how Ben Jacobson's teams are constructed to win a game or stay within a number, did not work out against the Red Storm. Our second game of this Sweet 16 Friday, we have seen a ton of market movement. When the line opened, Michigan was a 10.5-point favorite, double digits against Alabama and the Crimson Tide. Yesterday, it got as low as 8.5. Looking at DraftKings as we speak, number is 9.5. Could be the fifth highest total in an NCAA tournament game ever. 172.5. That's what happens when you play against Nate Oates and how he likes his style of basketball to play out on the floor. Will, what's your thought in this game? Just how tightly contested do you expect it to be between Michigan and Alabama tonight in Chicago?
Yeah, and you mentioned the line movement. I wonder if some of that is just all of these favorites winning last weekend and these money line parlays continue to cash. 2-teamers, 3-teamers, 5-teamers, 8-teamers, you name it. And the books are saying, you know what, let's jack up these lines a little bit and just make you think twice. Let's dare you to bet the dog. And then, the sharper bettors, the professional bettors are going to see that number and say that should not be 10.5 or 9.5. And they come in on the dog. And there's a little cat and mouse game in terms of the number. I mean, look, it's tough. Bama, we know their path to victory here. Shoot 45, 53s. You hope to hit half of them, and you math your way to a win here. You math your way to the next round where you just get 60 points or 66 points on three-pointers, and that's the path. Other than that, I think it'll be somewhat similar to Arizona and Arkansas last night, where it's just at some points it might look like a layup line here for Michigan. I like the Michigan team total over. I think 91.5 is about the most consensus number out there. I just think the pace will be there. I think when Michigan shoots and they miss, they're going to get plenty of second chance opportunities, plenty of second chance points. I just don't know if there's a path here for Bama outside of hitting a million threes here to slow down Michigan. So Michigan team total here. I think we see some pace. I think we see a bunch of second chance opportunities. I think Michigan gets well into the 90s and who knows, maybe pushes 100. What did Arizona end up with, like 109 or something like that last night? Yeah. I don't know that we get quite there, but I think that's a similar sort of path for this game. Again, barring Bama just lighting up the scoreboard from behind the arc.
Will Hill with us at Not the Will Hill up on X. Should Have Bet More podcast as well. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts. You find them on VSiN Primetime all the time as well. 6:45 p.m. Pacific time, 9:45 for you on the East Coast, the worst of the coast to watch sports in. Connecticut is up to a 1.5-point favorite with a total of 136.5. So I think this is similar to St. John's and Duke in the sense of all year long, UConn has screamed, we're not as good as you think we are. We're not covering any of these numbers. And yet here we are again. This opens pick. We're up to 2 in some spots, Will.
Yeah, and it's just it's interesting, and not that it applies to this game, but it's amazing how UConn gets to the Sweet 16, and that's like that's it for them. They win all these Sweet 16 games. At least I think they won their last 7. They seem to get to this round, and then they just take off. And Hurley, this has been another UConn trademark here. They do really well at a conference, so I can understand people taking a shot on Hurley here. I like UConn. I don't really trust them. I haven't trusted them all year. The losses to UConn and Marquette, Creighton and Marquette are really concerning. But Hurley's won 15 out of 16 in this tournament. He's covered 15 out of 16 in this tournament. And at some point, and this has got to be the encouraging thing if you're UConn, at some point the three-pointers have to drop because they've got some good shooters. I think like 3 of 20 against St. John's, 33% against UCLA, and I want to say 5 of 25 against Furman. They can't make a shot, and they're still alive here. You figure at some point they're going to have one of these nights where they shoot 38, 40%. Meanwhile, Michigan State, who's not a great three-point shooting team, has actually shot it pretty well recently. So maybe some shooting regression in the Huskies' favor. You can't really go wrong betting Hurley when all he has to do is win a tournament game, an out-of-conference game. And remember, as shaky as they were in conference play, out of conference, they beat Florida. They beat Illinois. They won at Kansas. They beat BYU back when that was more of an impressive performance here. So I will go with UConn. I admit I don't trust them, but I will bet on Hurley here to march on and create. Boy, that will be a hell of a regional final, whether it's Duke or round 4 against St. John's. Man, sign me up for that Sunday afternoon. That'll be a hell of an Elite Eight if it's UConn versus either of those two teams.
To JVT's point, you see the ATS record for Connecticut this year, 13-23 against the number. That is bottom 10 among high major programs all season in college hoops. Our fourth and final game of Sweet 16 Friday night, will Iowa State and Tennessee inside the United Center. Of course, a big question mark for the Cyclones is the status of second-team All-American and their best player in Joshua Jefferson. Despite that uncertainty around on if he will play tonight, this line has moved from 3.5 yesterday afternoon to now 4.5 in favor of Iowa State. Do you buy into the market movement in favor of the Cyclones?
Yeah, it's interesting. From 4.5 to 3.5 and from 3.5 back to 4.5. I like Tennessee. I'm surprised this is this high. I know trusting Rick Barnes in March, usually not a good endeavor, but they're a really athletic team, a really good rebounding team. I think they'll get a bunch of second chance points. I'm just surprised this is 4.5 because I don't expect much from Jefferson. Even if he plays, Jefferson, I don't think will give him, a 100% effort here. I would think he would be hobbled, if not out completely. And remember, if we're playing around the spread here and this line is about right, and we're in that 4 to 6 point range late, Iowa State 67% from the line, a terrible free throw shooting team. It's hard to put these games away, these teams away when you can't make free throws. I think this is anybody's game with 3 or 4 minutes to go. I'll take the points here with the Vols.
I'm looking up cheers. This show looks awful. I'm just going to say this right now. So I don't know what's going on here, but this show looks terrible. Fashion has gotten so much better, but I'm getting distracted here. All right. I know you have some baseball in the brain, but really quickly, anything Elite Eight in the 2 games that are set that you have played yet?
Arizona looks a little light. Iowa looks a little heavy. I mean, McCollum's such a good coach. They muck it up. They play like Iowa football where any points are valuable. They slow the game down. They muck it up. They make it a half-court game. So I would look towards taking the points with Iowa. And I don't know how Purdue gets stops. I think Arizona team total over. I just don't know that Purdue presents a lot of trouble defensively for Arizona. So the favorite with Arizona and the dog with Iowa would be how I'm looking here.
All right, last 90 seconds. You got a couple of baseball plays. Let's start A's first 5. So you're looking somewhere in that range. Is it Pro Severino on the road? He was pretty good away from home last year.
You got it. Disastrous at home in that minor league ballpark, but pretty respectable on the road last year. I think a difference between like a 3 ERA and a 6 ERA at home. Not that ERA is everything, but that is a monster lineup with the A's. And I'll talk about this a lot during the baseball season. Give me that half run in the first 5. So often, especially when you get a decent pitching matchup, it's 2-2 after 5, and you bet the money line, you get a refund. I love winning when it's tied after 5. Give me the lineup, give me Severino on the road, and give me that half a run here with Severino.
And Braves game as well on your radar too, correct?
Yeah, another one I like here is these unders in the first 3 when you get a good pitching matchup. You avoid the first 5 or the second time through the lineup, third time through the lineup. You avoid the bullpens. Get me in, get me out with 2 good starting pitchers. You can play under 1.5, you get plus 130. You can play under 2.5 and lay 166. If you put a half a unit on each, it comes out to like minus 110, and basically you're just playing a composite here of under 2. To me, this is scoreless or 1-0 after 3 most likely. You never know these pitchers early in the season. They're not sharp. Weather is different than spring training. All of those caveats. You can always lose a bet, but I'll bank on Reagans and Sale here, pitching pretty good ball games, at least to start.
We always appreciate it, Will. Thank you very much. Good luck today, buddy.
All right. See you guys. Thanks for having me.
Not the Will Hill. Check him out up on X. Check out the Should Have Bet More podcast as well. And make sure you check out vsin.com/subscribe. Absolutely fantastic op for you now. You can sign up for as little as $9.99. Daily best bets, real-time betting splits, the AI-powered prop tools. Major League Baseball this season's up there. 24/7 live video and all of our betting guides included. vsin.com/subscribe. Check it out today.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The there are times where I have a method to my madness. I like to poke and I like to prod, and I know what our audience is. I know generally the age range and whatnot. And so I know when I make a statement that I had no idea what Cheers is at all, I know that there will be some ripple effects. And we've gotten some responses to the fact that I do not know what Cheers is. Let's see. Mike checks in. He says that he's with me, though. Like the TV Challenge, JVT, I know the Big Ten is the crappy conference that went 3-12 versus the ACC this year. Mark says, Cheers days, Ben needs more proof of the hair. This comes from Mike Palm saying that you had the hair of a young Ted Danson. And Rick checks in, said, not knowing the show Cheers reminds me, or JVT not knowing the show Cheers reminds me of Bruce Pearl not knowing who Eminem is. I feel like that's slightly different. I mean, Eminem was in his heyday while Bruce Pearl was alive. I mean, and he's still going now. Cheers ended, I think, if I look this up correctly, 1993. Like I was like 2 years old when this thing ended. Yeah. So like, I'm not supposed to know what this is.
I completely agree, at least in the comparison of Bruce Pearl not knowing who Marshall Mathers or Eminem is. That was very much simultaneous. I would even say a young Bruce Pearl trying to crack it as an assistant coach in college basketball, probably bumping Eminem, Lose Yourself, getting hyped for those college basketball games. Not knowing that is astounding. I only know Cheers because I know the jingle. I know a little bit about Ted Danson, I guess. I'm very honored and humbled that Mike Palm thinks my hairdo resembles that. Ted Danson, touching 80, by the way, still a gorgeous head of hair. So I will take that certainly and hope that remains the case for me in many, many decades from now. I agree with you, though, JVT. I'm always one of those people that I don't know an old movie. I might not know an old television show. Doesn't mean I have a lack of pop culture knowledge. I just haven't seen it. If I don't think I know something, I'm not going to offer my 2 cents on it. There's enough people that are experts on other things that I'll just hear from them.
Speaking of pop culture, this is where I pull the pin and lob a grenade very quickly to our buddies that follow us here on Follow the Money. There is a promo running in which the promo says that Mitch and Paul are, I'm paraphrasing here, tied into pop culture. It's all just Seinfeld references, okay? Like, come on now. That was pop culture like 30, 40 years ago. I don't know if they're really tied into pop culture now. So I'm just going to say that of the crew that is, I think, most tied into current culture, Money Moves is probably up there at the top of the power ratings. I'm just going to say that. We're youthful. We're spry. Much like the Charlotte Hornets, who have been terrorizing the NBA for now the good part of 3 months, and we're getting up to 4 months here. And this is where I wanted to start before we get to the association. There's actually a lot to get to in the NBA, not only just a massive card. We got news today about the draft lottery, which we can tie in really quickly. But just yesterday, you and I talked about this game at length because it was one of the few games that looked like it was going to be somewhat competitive. Charlotte Hornets were about 1.5-point favorites against the New York Knicks. Talked about the fact that, hey, look, from a power rating standpoint, this should probably be higher. You should at the very least give the Hornets home court advantage, which 1.5 was not. And they go out, and outside of leading 2-0 for the Knicks, the Hornets keep them at arm's length the whole way, never really sweat the result outside of only being up by 2 after the first quarter. They get a 114-103 victory. And, Ben, I got to tell you, for a victory on March 26th on a Tuesday, I think this is as impactful and strong a win as you can have if you're a team. Since the beginning of the year, so 2026, the calendar year, the Charlotte Hornets are not number 5. They're not number 3. They are the best team in the NBA in net rating overall in terms of non-garbage time. They are ahead of the San Antonio Spurs, who over that same stretch are 31-9. If you want to sort since January 1st by top 10 opponents in terms of top 10 opponents in net rating, the Charlotte Hornets in net rating against those opponents are first in the NBA. This is a team that has been terrorizing the league for a really long time, and I think it's time to start taking this serious, not as a team that, hey, man, this cute, plucky squad with the best starting lineup in the NBA might be able to get themselves into the postseason because they're flirting around that play-in range. I think you need to start to look at them as a team in an Eastern Conference that doesn't look particularly daunting, as a group that might actually be able to win that thing and make it to an NBA Finals, because they have strong wins over every single one of the opponents ahead of them. Just about 2 weeks ago, they went out there and beat down Boston. Like, they're a team that is formidable in every sense of the word, offensively and defensively. And yesterday was just another piece of evidence to that fact. And I think this team needs to be upgraded to a very large degree. I think they need to be considered equals at the very least to teams like the New York Knicks and the Detroit Pistons. And I think that this Eastern Conference should be on watch, because should any of these top-seeded teams be forced to take them on, 1 or 2 seed in a 1-7, or excuse me, in a 2-7 or 1-8 matchup, I think a lot of these teams are in trouble, Ben.
The Eastern Conference has been very up in the air from the odds perspective all year. Most tightly aligned has been Boston, New York, Cleveland in some order being the top three, and despite the Pistons being the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, $1 or so with a couple of change here and there back of those 3 teams. Philadelphia has that 5th best price currently at 30-1. JVT's point is incredibly sound. Charlotte is 40-1 to win the Eastern Conference crown. Oh, they're in the 9 spot currently alongside Orlando and Miami. All of those 3 teams now 39 and 34. The Hornets are a game and a half behind the Toronto Raptors to get out of the play-in tournament, play in the opening round of the postseason as the 6th seed. And on the tear that Charlotte is on, that is not insurmountable despite having fewer than 10 games remaining in this NBA regular season. JVT, to your point, the first time I filled in on Money Moves, we talked about it. Stormy introduced me to the win-o-meter for that team in Buzz City. At that time, they had started a 9-game win streak. Right before, on January 21st, the Hornets were 16-28. From that point, they are 23-6 outright, and as a slight 1.5-point favorite yesterday at home against New York, they win by double digits and easily cover. LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Con Knippel all bury 4 threes. The rookie out of Duke in Knippel hitting 6 triples to lead the way for Charlotte last night. This is not just, oh, they're getting fun at the end of the year. Oh, they might get out of the play-in tournament. I really do believe in a very up-in-the-air Eastern Conference. They can win a round. They can win 2 rounds. And that 40-1 price to win the Eastern Conference crown would be slashed by many, many, many dollars if they get to that stage, even just emerging, I think, out of the play-in tournament.
Yeah, we've flirted with this topic before, but 40-1 I think is worth biting on. They shouldn't be priced in that range. Even if you want to tell me it like 12-1, whatever it is, 15-1, that's fine. Every statistical return of this team is that they are one that is on par with the 3 teams that are at the top of the Eastern Conference. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's not splitting hairs. There's not, oh, well, it's only against bottom 25 teams. No, there is nothing that would tell you that they cannot do what some of the teams above them in the Eastern Conference are doing, and yet they're getting priced like a bottom feeder because of the way that this playoff is shaking out right now. So I'm with you, 40-1. Good shout, too, on Con Knippel, who's minus 255 right now to win Rookie of the Year. Cooper Flagg still is performing very well, plus 195. That is going to be a race in itself that is going to be absolutely fascinating. Still think there's a lot of people, Ben. One of the underrated aspects of awards voting is that a lot of voters actually decide pretty early who they're going to vote for. They don't really buy into late season and whatnot. It's not like Knippel's had like a late season swoon. He's been great all season long. But I do think that this is probably priced at this point, if you had nothing, take a piece of Cooper Flagg, because I do think there's quite a few voters that already made up their mind. And here's the other thing, too, folks. I've said this before. We'll say it one more time. Ben, you and I, in the sports that we like and that we cover, we will follow the ebbs and flows of the betting market for these awards every single day and talk about these individual performances and how it affects the race. A lot of voters, we have talked to them, they check in at the end of the year. They come in when the votes are due, and they look at their scores, and they look at their points per game, and they say, okay, we'll do this, or okay, I like that. They're not following it like you or I, and that is an advantage for a guy like a Cooper Flagg who is going to have overall slightly better numbers when Con Knippel's going to offer.
Undoubtedly. I think it's one of the areas in terms of the sports betting world where the odds and trying to, put it to a power rating, have an algorithm or a model that produces the most likely scenario as we do for any individual game, as we do for a conference price, a divisional number, a win total, where you can really kind of lock these things down. It doesn't matter who has been better. It doesn't matter what the statistics say. It matters what a group of voters decide is the best storyline or perhaps the best narrative. There might be a couple of people that follow the odds market and the ebbs and flows. There might be a couple of people that ascertain everything to what those metrics are producing. And there might be an overwhelming majority of people that say, oh, Con Knippel shooting the 3, but Cooper Flagg has been as good as promised as the number 1 overall pick. He is the Rookie of the Year. You really cannot mesh up voting narratives in terms of these awards and what the odds market says. Con Knippel should win NBA Rookie of the Year. Doesn't mean he will, and because he is such a strong favorite does not necessarily guarantee by any means that he is going to go home with that hardware.
All right. When we get back, we have another hour on the way. We have a lot to get to. There's a full NBA card, too. There's a bunch of games. I think, by my count, 7 or 8 with double-digit spreads. We'll talk about the stupidity of the moneyline parlay that you want to put together potentially of the opponents taking on the tanking teams. Got a couple of plays there, one that's moved for me, one that's moved against me. We also have to talk some big-picture stuff. One more point on that. we also have to get to Major League Baseball because we were talking about this. I don't know why MLB decided not to do some day games today. I mean, it's opening weekend. We could do with a couple of games as the day is going on.
Normally, it's a full slate Friday. You've got all 30 clubs in action, 15 games that dot the docket. And I really thought that was going to be the case after the Yankees and Giants started on opening night on Wednesday. We had 11 games yesterday on the full opening day around Major League Baseball. 8 games stay on this Friday, JVT. That's it.
Check out our friends at Just Win Bets, baby. Mathematical models, AI-driven best bets across all sports, plus live weekend preview every Friday. JustWinBetsBaby.com. Check it out today.